Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today we're looking at a new deck profile. This time we're looking at Sprite Paleozoic Frog. Really cool variant. There's like a lot of different variants that Sprite can be splashed into, but this is the only variant that ends up being trap proficient in. So I really like it. I'm definitely drawn to this variant. It's so cool. We're gonna be looking at that today. Also, look at this shirt. This shirt is so clean. What? What? Huh? Anyway, let me know your thoughts down below on the list, but without further ado, let's jump into it. This is a trap variant, so there's really no, and it's Sprite. Everybody knows what Sprite does at this point. There's no reason to really go into like Sprite combos and stuff. We're gonna do a basic style profile for this list here. Let's get this set up real quick, live. I don't really have time to edit today, so we're just gonna go ahead and slam this down and jump into it. But yeah, without further ado, here we go. Sprite Paleo. One more. Come on. What are we really doing here? The deck's really cool though. I like so like as far as how it fundamentally works with Sprite, I like that like instead of feeling the need for hand traps or, you know, oh my gosh, why is this not like cooperating? You know what? You know what I need to do? I need to be smarter than I am, and I need to just move the playmat so that it fits the boundaries here. But yeah, so what I like about the deck is that this variant is not as reliant on needing hand traps and or board breakers. You actually rely on your trap cards. So what I think is the deck is straight up better going first, because if your play doesn't work out or it does and you also set trap cards on top of what your board already offers, you're beating decks just because even after they Dark Ruler, you still just punish them with trap cards. I would say going second, it's like not, it's definitely worse than just playing board breakers. I still think it might be as good as playing hand traps going second. I guess unless you're playing like 20 hand traps, but yeah, still pretty good going second. So let's get into the list. Starting off, of course, is a Paleozoic deck, so we need to be in on the frog package, so triple swap and the one Ronin. I'm not going all in. I'm not playing dupe. I'm not playing the second Ronin. I think this is all you need. I want to draw trap cards in this deck. I feel like if we're going to focus on a Paleozoic variant, I want to draw enough trap cards to make the Paleozoics good. And that's one of the downsides of the variant, is that like you kind of want to see multiple trap cards if you want to like make the Paleozoics good, but you also want to see multiple Sprite cards to play through Interruption and make that part of the deck good. But I still feel like it meets a common ground and like still makes it work at the end of the day. I'm also on Triple Diva. This should be Beaver for sure. I think like if you're not playing Hulk and like certain lines that abuse Hulk, you definitely should be playing Beaver. So for me, I would say definitely cut this and play Beaver instead, but like it still gets the job done. It's a one card gigantic Sprite. Beaver's just better in the grind. Triple copies of blue. Apologies for the missing copies here. It's the only card I don't have for the Sprite package because it's like the only card in the package that's like just randomly $70+ Don't love that, but obviously insane. Triple copies of Jet. We know why we play Jet, such as the spell traps, insanely good. Also, one thing that's interesting is in Darkwing Blast, we get the new trap card for Sprite. I might tech in a copy of that in this variant. If you really want to do that, I think that's cool because it like triggers your Paleozoic, so it gives you a way to like connect to another normal trap that can trigger your Paleos via the Sprite engine, which is pretty cool. That can definitely come up. And then the utility cards for the monsters. Red, Carrot, and Pixies, all good in their own right. Your monster negator, your spell trap negator, and your battle trap. This allows you to, one of the biggest problems with, and even Paleos before even Sprite came out, was dealing with just big monsters. They can be really threatening, and if you don't have an immediate removal trap, they definitely just threaten your main monsters on board and just run them over. So Pixies I definitely like in the package. Overall, I just feel like the utility is good. And like worst case scenario, he's just a free fucking level 2 on the field. So I do not care. He's still worth it. Triple starter. I don't need to talk about this. One card combo. One smasher. Still playing smashers in the list. I like that this works with anything. So even if you set this and you open no Sprite cards, no frog cards, no monsters, and like literally you go like, oh, activate a Paleozoic to interrupt your opponent. Then another normal trap to summon back the Paleozoic. Because let's be honest, if you didn't open any monsters, you opened like all traps, most likely. And then this card literally can like banish a Paleozoic and a monster your opponent controls. So like you can still make it live that way, which is cool. Speaking of the Paleos, move to the trap cards of the deck. Triple Dynamiscus, really good. This card's actually been seeing play in Tier Element because it discards for effect, which means it triggers all the Tier Element effects, which is broken. Triple Canadia. It's a Book of Moon, but like Book of Moon's kind of mediocre in Yu-Gi-Oh! In modern day formats, but the fact that it's Book of Moon and then another 2 on the field later on still makes it worth playing, in my opinion. Triple Olenoids, this is by far the worst of the 3. It is a more cost-efficient MST as far as like being a Mystic Mine out or a certain Floodgate out, which I do like. It's why this variant is not as weak to certain Floodgates in the format, whether it's stuff like Rivalry, whether it's stuff like Mystic Mine, which I will take. Inherently, this deck beats those variants much better. But that being said, this card is less versatile. You know, you're kind of hoping for a deck that wants to Mystic Mine you or Floodgate you, or maybe a deck like that plays like the Adventure Engine, and you can even go first and like pop the Continuous, which like can save your Keister at times, so still cool. Or even, I guess versus Tier, you could like pop the Field Spell, because sometimes the Field Spell just offers so much value for them, like removal as the duel goes on, and for a back row deck, like that can be super annoying. Okay, moving on here. Triple Lost Wind. This card is not this is like the most cuttable card in the list for me. I like this card. I like how it pairs with Paleozoic, that as the duel goes on, it resets itself, which means you get another normal trap activation to trigger Paleo's Engrave. So, like, that's really cool. But I do think this could be something else. I would look at something like Terrors of the Underroot is another card I've been looking at in normal trap decks specifically, because it's such a versatile removal card. Removes anything from the field. Also messes with interrupting graveyard stuff. So maybe that's something to look at instead. But for right now, I have this. I think it's still pretty fine. I think it's actually a pretty good trap going second as well, especially when you pair it with multiple other things as well. So really cool card at the end of the day. Triple Imperm, it's the only hand trap I play in the main. I like this because in the mirror, it gives you kind of like a leg up on being able to go second, stop your opponent from getting the Toad, which I know in the mirror people say that like Zeus is the most powerful thing, but I also think going second, if your opponent does get to Toad, it is the scariest thing you can imagine, for sure, because it just means their grind is so much crazier than yours once they get a Toad in rotation, if you cannot. So I think it's like the combination of those two things is the scariest. So going second, this being able to keep a Sprite mirror off of Totally Awesome is very, very important. And also just a generically good card as well going second. Sometimes you have to make that decision depending on what you're playing against and how good you think it is at any given time. Sometimes you hold it and just set it with set like 4 or 5 or 3 to 5, I would say probably, and decide whether it's good to activate right at that moment, right at the beginning of your turn, or whether it's going to be better to just set and combine with multiple other trap cards playing into the board. You got to make that decision. Moving from there, double Ice Dragon's Prison. This card's really cool. I like this card actually quite a bit in the format, whether it's hitting Mathemex, who only play Cyber decks. The Mirror Match, which is like a lot of Thunder stuff before they get into anything else, which is pretty cool. You can even hit Aquas. Being able to hit like a Ronin Engrave plus like a swap on field can be like super insane, honestly. And then honestly versus Tier, not only does it like move a Tier monster Engrave if they have another Aqua on field to also remove that, but like obviously there are other matchups where this is insane. So I feel like this card's actually pretty good in the format right now. I'm surprised I haven't seen more of this just seeing play generically, but still a cool card. So I only played it 2 though, because it is kind of matchup dependent. And the last card is Solemn Strike. This to me is mandatory with Paleozoic decks. A lot of Paleozoic traps are like removal based, so being able to like fire them to bait and negate, and then chain Solemn Strike to not only end the chain, make it so your opponent can't respond anymore, but then also just break through and clear a board going second is huge. And even going first, it's also like an insanely powerful card in its own right as well. It's just one of the, it's probably the best generic trap card we've ever seen in the game of Yu-Gi-Oh! Just because it's like, it's good going second, it's powerful going first, whereas like with Imperm, you're like, the power level is lower, but it's better going second. I think this card is like good enough in both scenarios where it's like probably the best trap ever made. So yeah. From there, we move to maybe, you know what? Maybe I'll make a top 5 or top 10 list for just like trap cards ever made. We'll see. Okay, moving on to the extra deck. I'm 40 in the main, keeping consistent there. Double Sprite Elf. I don't think you need 3. I think 2 is totally fine. 1 Phoenix, 1 Cerberus. I think this is okay as well. I mean, like, I think this is the most cuttable card in the deck, is definitely Cerberus for the extra deck. if you wanted to fit in something else, but I still feel like the engine itself doesn't have like super clean removal at all times, like especially like a lot of removal. It may have like you insert smatchers, cool, that removes one thing at the cost of another resource on board. Whereas like this, like yes, it discards, but it's like access to another removal if you need it. Especially if you can go into this prior to you making Gigantic and then make Gigantic with it after you've baited a negate with Cerberus is pretty cool. If it's on a negate and destroy. And then one dark and one area. I think these are mandatory in Sprite right now. This reborning either a swap, a toad, or some other water is just like so crazy. This card's so crazy. Especially when like in this deck, like if you're just like baiting cards with this, that your opponent knows they have to negate this because the toad's in grave. And if they don't, like they're fucked. And then from there, you just literally make Gigantic if you haven't made Gigantic yet, or make Elf and then just like continue to play through their shit. Is so good. Same thing with dark, like you're reborning a blue to just get a search of your own, a jet to get a search of your own, or just a giant random dark to get extra material. Keep popping off is really good. For the Exceeds, double Gigantic, super mandatory for this list. Summoning swap from deck, super imperative to your overall strategy. One day I may look at fitting Wind Up Kitten in a list, but that's a discussion for another day. 2 totally awesome, and the 1 Opabinia for like the frog paleo stuff. Double toad in this list because of the paleos and because of like your frog engine, you can actually get to double of this much more often than like a pure Sprite list. So this is pretty cool. And I think Opabinia is pretty mandatory at this point. I think if your decision tree is like, should I go into double toad or 1 Opabinia, 1 toad? I think a lot of times it's going to be 1 and 1 because what I like about Opabinia, it's just way more proactive if you're making it with a paleo. Toad is so reactive, whereas if your opponent can just summon big bodies, they can walk over it. Whereas if you summon Opabinia with it, even if your opponent summons big bodies, you could have a Canadia to just book a Moon a big body before they go battle phase, or a Dynamiscus to just straight up like it inks that threatening card entirely. It's less offensive in terms of like its stats. It is a 2400 booty, but like 0 attack, which is kind of annoying. But other than that, I do think pairing 1 and 1 generally ends up covering more situations than 2 and 2 of this. So like I like playing 2-1 just in case the double toad comes up, but also Opabinia could be its own thing. Another card super interesting, Mannequin Cat. I cannot believe people slept on this card for as long as they did. As soon as I read this card when it came out as like a random, this was like a random card thrown into a set. This was thrown into Rising Rampage just randomly. Like, oh, this is just a random Exceed. I read this card and I said, this card is fucking crazy. If you have a crazy light or dark monster in your deck that just summoning out of the deck is like pretty insane, this card's crazy because those types are so generic, because so many decks just go into those types throughout just general plays. This card becomes insane. The problem was we never had a like rank 2 deck that could just like spam this card out super easily. Now with Sprite, summoning this card is so easy and it's so broken. So I truly believe this card should be a staple in most Sprite decks. Cannot believe people avoided this long. Like siding a artifact Scythe and then like playing against something like Math Mech or some other deck that like needs to summon a light throughout its combo, and then when they do, you just literally Scythe them is like so funny and crazy. So yeah, really cool card. And then lastly, it's just Zeus stuff. Centuria, Downerd, Zeus, super standard there. I wish I could find room for Onibimaru, but as you can see from the main deck, like maybe it's something like Nightmare Cerberus, but they kind of both offer removal. So like, which one do you like more? Kind of depends. Cerberus discards, whereas this card only vanishes till the end phase. So they do get their monster back at some point. Kind of have to make your decision there. That's definitely like a swappable situation there if you think so, but obviously that goes for like the individual duelist. But at the end of the day, yeah, this is what I got. Really cool deck. I think one of the most interesting variants of a Sprite variant that I've seen since the deck's come out, for sure. So I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts down below. Is there any cards you think I didn't have in the list here that you think I should consider? Is there anything you think I definitely need to take out because it's just not downright good enough? I'd love to hear your thoughts there. Thank you so much. Also, let me know what you think about the shirt. This banana shirt. Oh my, I mean, look, come on. But yeah, I'm out of here for today, guys. Thank you so much for watching. As always, subscribe to the channel if you want to see more stuff from your boy down the line, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace. Where's the freaking button? Oh my